On today's episode, she's the queen of the universe, the goddess that transcends time and space. It's Isis.
Enter a world of enchantment, of enlightenment, Meg's magical mansion.
Come, whoever you are, to Meg's Magical Mansion, a virtual guest house for spiritual wayfarers, a place where the ordinary becomes magical, where wisdom is yours for the asking, and where your higher nature is just a wish away. Thanks for joining us here today at Meg's Magical Mansion. I'm Meg, here with my trusty assistant, Miss Alice Poopers. We are so happy you're here today, and I guess Scallion and Parfait are scampered off on some summer adventures, so it's just us today for part 3 of our Power Goddess series. And today's goddess is, drumroll please, it's Isis. So we're going to find all about this goddess who's the mother of all mothers. She is a powerful magician. She is a little bit of a trickster, and she is super famous. And one of my favorite things about her is her ability to what I like to call Frankenstein it. You know what I mean. Reanimating life. She did it way before Mary Shelley ever thought about it. And let's find out more about this power goddess who got her start in ancient Egypt, but whose fame has spread throughout time and space. Isis, the goddess of 10,000 names, the Great Mother, the goddess of healing and magic, goddess of mourning. How did Isis start out as an unheard of nobody goddess and rise up to be one of the most worshipped goddesses of all time? She has spanned both time and space. Ancient Egyptians first called her Aset. Her name means Queen of the Throne. She's also called Lady of Abundance, Giver of Life, Queen of Heaven. Early forms of Isis show her wearing a vulture headdress, but over the thousands of years that she was being actively worshipped, she transforms and is often depicted wearing a headdress that is a disc with horns on the side, or a headdress that is a throne, and her headdress changes as she sort of assimilates and takes on attributes from other goddesses, such as Hathor or Mut. She is also seen as a winged goddess who used her wings to bring fresh air to the underworld when she went there to meet her husband, Osiris. As is often the case in ancient Egyptian lore, genealogy, and legend, brothers and sisters often married, so Isis and Osiris were siblings. So Osiris was her brother and husband, and he was ruler of the underworld. And it is said that Isis and Osiris were in love with each other even in the womb. So Isis has become a protector of women, a bringer of magic. She's known as the Queen of the Universe and the embodiment of the divine cosmic order. And she has transcended her original Egyptian origins, and she became worshipped throughout ancient Greece and Rome. So at one point in history, Isis was competing for followers against the great Greek pantheon of gods and goddesses, the great Roman pantheon of gods and goddesses, and also for a brief time against early forms of Christianity, was competing with Isis for followers. And it was actually the emergence of Christianity in the 4th through 6th centuries that caused the large followings of Isis to kind of fall apart at that time. But Isis started off as an obscure goddess with no dedicated temples to her. How did she come from being an absolute nobody to becoming Queen of the Universe? The priests of Heliopolis, who worshiped the sun god Re, were the first ones to develop the mythology of Isis. Isis is the daughter of the earth god Geb and the sky goddess Nut. Geb and Nut had 4 children: Isis, Osiris, Seth and Nephthys. Isis was seen as a queen who was supportive of her husband Osiris, and she taught the women of Egypt to weave, bake, and make beer. Everything seemed to be going along pretty well, until, of course, there's always a problem. And in this case, it's Isis and Osiris's younger brother, Seth. And Seth is very jealous because, as the younger brother, he does not hold the power. Osiris rules and holds all of the power, and Seth does not like this. And in the tradition of all evil villains, Seth hatches a plot to take out his main rival, Osiris. He traps Osiris and locks him up in a decorated wooden chest. He covers the chest with lead and tosses it into the Nile. Wow, what a precursor to your mafia version with the cement shoes, huh? And this chest became Osiris's coffin. Meanwhile, Isis is hysterical at the loss of her beloved husband, searches everywhere for Osiris, and discovers his body in the chest in Byblos. She brings the chest back to Egypt, and when Seth hears this, he flies into a rage and breaks open the chest and hacks the body of Osiris into bits and scatters the bits everywhere, all over the earth, because he is really one super jealous bro. Now, about this time, Isis realizes two really huge truths here. Number one, she has lost her love of her life, her husband Osiris, and number two, they did not have any children, so Seth is going to now rule everything. So she decides that she is going to find all of the parts of Osiris, and in the original Frankenstein twist, she turns herself into a bird, and with help of her sister, Nephthys, she flies all around and collects all of the pieces of Osiris and puts him back together again, because she has to have a child with him in order to keep Seth from taking over the throne. Well, she pretty much manages to Frankenstein Osiris back together and put all the pieces together, but sadly, the most important part that she needs for the baby making is missing, because Seth has taken the penis of Osiris and thrown it into the river so the fish could eat it up. But thank goodness that Isis is the master magician, because she creates with her magic a new member for Osiris and wraps him all up like a mummy, puts him all together. He's not alive, he's not dead, but somehow 9 months later, she delivers a son named Horus. At which point Osiris goes back to the underworld where he stays and rules, and that's just his gig. Now back to that evil Seth guy. He is not going to take kindly to the idea of having a little nephew who could take his place and supplant him on the throne. So you know he's looking everywhere to find this little baby and kill it. Ooh, this sounds a lot like another story I've heard. So Isis takes her little baby Horus and disappears into the swamps of the Nile River, where she hides with Horus and lives with him in the marshes until he is grown and able to come back and avenge his father and take his rightful place on the throne. And let me tell you, there are a lot of stories about the battles that rage between Seth and Horus once Horus becomes an adult. But this is one of the things I love most about Isis. She starts out as this traditional Egyptian wife, hanging out in the background, doing her thing, being a good wife, teaching all the women of Egypt how to be good women and make their bread and weave and make beer. But when her family is threatened, she goes full on Mama Bear. Hence, she is often seen as the great protector of family and especially of children. And again, one of her chief aspects is that of a magician and a healer. and she is often invoked on behalf of the sick. And as I said earlier when talking about her headdress, Isis becomes associated over time with other goddesses, such as Nut, Hathor, Bastet, and her powers and divine nature become more and more diverse as she becomes known as the Eye of Re, and she is symbolized by the dog star. The very first major temple to Isis was built by Nectanebo II, a late period king who lived from 360 to 343 BCE. And other more important temples were built during the Greco-Roman times, and this is when Isis reaches true dominance among the Egyptian goddesses. Temples in Alexandria were built. She becomes the patron saint of sailors. The worship of Isis spreads to Greece and Rome. Isis is seen as the original mother figure, or Madonna, as the inventor of the institution of marriage. Images of Isis holding baby Horus may have been inspirational to early Christian artists when they were depicting the Virgin Mary and baby Jesus. Remember that the cults of Isis and Christianity were briefly in direct competition for new adherents and followers, just for a brief time in history, and it was the rise of Christianity that led to the final demise of the widespread worship of Isis. So from her early humble origins in Egypt and Nubia, the legend and fame of Isis grew and spread across time and across geographical boundaries. It spread throughout the ancient world of Greek and Rome. Cleopatra strongly identified herself with Isis as a way to legitimize her rule and as a connection to the native faith of her people. And Isis has appeared again in modern paganism as a goddess that incarnates all of the divine powers of the feminine. Some signs and symbols of Isis would be the throne, the knot of Isis, the sun disk, Sistra Maratal, cow horn, wings, and kites. Animals associated with her are cows, snakes, scorpions, and birds, both swallows and vultures. If you wish to make offerings to Isis, you might consider trying candy or other sweets, wine, honey, milk, perfume, raisins or dried fruit. She is very strongly associated with myrrh and vervain, with dates, figs, and roses. Some gems or stones associated with her would be jasper, lapis lazuli, moldavite, rose quartz. And that's a little bit of information for you about the great goddess Isis, the goddess of all goddesses, mother of the universe. Hopefully you found some inspiration here that you can take into your magic, into your spells, and into your spiritual life. Well, I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about Isis. And who knew, oh shit, so many names and so many interesting myths behind her. A lot of amazing stories, and I hope you found some ways you could take the power of Isis and incorporate it into your magic, into your spells, and into whatever it is you're doing in your life. And remember, in the words of Buddha, 1,000 candles can be lit from a single candle, and the life of the candle will not be shortened. Happiness never decreases by being shared. So thank you for sharing your time and attention with us here today at the Magical Mansion. Hey, till next time when we have another exciting Our God is for You. I can't wait to see who it's gonna be.